Good evening. I would like to call Monday, February 12th, 2024 Common Council meeting to order. Clerk Tirado, I believe you would like to make some comments regarding the link for this meeting and other expectations.
Good evening, members of the public. For audio quality, we will be muting everyone not speaking by default to maintain good audio quality for council and yourselves. If you would like to speak during the meeting on a specific agenda item, please submit your request in the chat. Directions to do so will be listed in the chat as well. We ask that you provide your full name and address, as those are required for all speakers in-person council meetings.
Thank you. At this time, we would welcome Pastor Jim McKinney from Christ Temple to come up for the invocation. Welcome.
Thank you. I give great honor to every one of you that serve our community and what you do each and every day. So if we can just bow our heads as we pray. Heavenly Father, as we gather today, we seek your presence and your wisdom. We thank you for the public servants that serve our city, and we ask for guidance as the decisions are made that will impact the lives of many. We pray for unity among our council members, that they may work together with respect and understanding, recognizing the diverse needs of our city. Lord, grant them discernment and insight as they deliberate and make decisions that affect our community. May your peace and wisdom be upon each person in this room, allowing for open and productive discussion. We ask for your blessing upon the leaders of our city, that they may act justly and with compassion. We additionally ask that you would bless their families as they sacrifice their time in service to our city. Finally, Lord, we lift up our city and its residents to you, praying for safety, prosperity, and harmony. May your light shine upon our community, bringing hope, revival, and renewal. We commit this meeting and all its proceedings into your hands, trusting in your guidance and grace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Can you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. At this time, I would like to welcome the Youth Council and thank them for coming today. Thank you, Ms. White, for the invitation, and you did such a great job with the Youth Advisory Council. So welcome back to us, and I know that you're here to listen to the mayor's address tonight, and we'll have a good report for us. Thank you so much for being here. Let's give them a hand. Will you guys stand, please? Thank you. Thanks so much for coming. Clerk Tirado, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Present.
Councilmember Lee.
Present.
Councilmember Warner.
Present.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Present.
Councilmember White. Councilmember Tomas Morgan.
Present.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Present.
Vice President Niskoski.
Present.
President McBride.
Present.
All 9 present.
Thank you. At this time, we will have a report from the subcommittee on minutes. We have the minutes. First of all, I would like to pause and say thank you to Clerk Tirado and her staff for going back and still catching up on the minutes that have not been uploaded or even transcribed. And we all know that there have been a problem with the minutes for some time. So the minutes that we will be getting a recommendation for approval is for the November 14th, 2022, August 28th, 2023, April 10th, 2023, April 24th, 2023, and January 22nd of 2024. I will turn to the subcommittee on minutes for your recommendation. Thank you. Mr. Rattle.
To the Common Council of the City of South Bend. The subcommittee has inspected the minutes of the January 22nd, 2024, April 24th, 2023, April 10th, 2023, August 28th, 2023, and November 14th, 2022 meeting of the Common Council and found them to be correct. Therefore, we recommend the same be approved.
Point of order. Okay. Can we just vote on the ones from the last meeting separately than the ones from last year? Because of the fact that personally, I was here for those. I would prefer to abstain from everything from last year.
Yes, point of order taken. Parliamentarian, you have any input?
I think that would be appropriate for the members who did not have knowledge of the 2022 and 2023 minutes to abstain from voting if they wished.
I kindly thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, we appreciate that. At this time, would you make a recommendation?
Certainly. We'll start with the recommendation to approve the January
22?
29th minutes for 2024.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk Toronto, the roll, please.
Councilmember Dr. Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember White, Councilmember Thomas Morgan, Councilmember Gooden Rogers,
Aye.
Vice President Niskoski, President McBride,
Aye.
all 9.
Thank you.
So then I would make a second motion to approve the November 14th, 2022 minutes, the April 10th, 2023 minutes, the April 24th, 2023 minutes, and the August 28th, 23.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk Toronto, the roll, please.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson,
Is this the one where abstain, because I was not, so abstain?
Councilmember White, Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers,
Abstain.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis,
Abstain.
Vice President Niskoski,
Aye.
President McBride.
Aye.
President McBride, if I could just kind of add on to what you said, I do want to commend the clerk's office and thank them. They've gone back and done a full audit of not only what's missing, but what we have that was started. There are some partials, there are meetings where there was nothing started. And now, as you've seen, we've begun to bring those back. So every meeting we should have some of these. There's over 32 council meetings, and then there's another over 30 that are the committee meetings that need to be done that everybody knows about. So it's quite a lot of work to get those all caught up. So I want to thank them, and then we do have a bill on first reading tonight that would allow them to contract for an outside service to assist with that. So it will be considering at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the report and again for the service and the hard work of the clerk's office. Now we'll move on to the reports from the city and welcome Mayor James Mueller with us tonight, who will be providing a statement of finance and the general condition of the city in his annual report. Welcome, Mayor.
Good evening, council members. Mayor James Mueller with offices on the 14th floor of this building. And our city controller is pulling up the presentation as we speak. Just as a reminder, this is not the official state of the city. That will be scheduled looking like in April this year. This is the financial update address to the city. So to the youth council, if you're about to get a lot of information about our public finances. This is not necessarily, for the finance people, they love this address. For others, they may prefer the other state of the city. But so hopefully we can convince you to come back for the state of the city in April when we have a date and time and location for that. Well, with that, we're starting we like to start where we are at a glance here in the city. And we have some key statistics about where we are: population, median household income, per capita income, and poverty rate. We do not have Oxford economics anymore, so the projections, you'll see the flat lines there in the 23, but we have updated the 22 numbers with the most recent estimates. So first, the city continues to grow from a population standpoint, as well from a medium household income and a per capita income over the past year. The poverty rate has also dropped in accordance with those factors. There are a couple things that are macroeconomic that are occurring. So we all know that inflation was out of control about a year and a half ago. Inflation has come down. Of course, prices don't come down. The rate of inflation is closer to the normal levels and the levels that the Federal Reserve targets. But that doesn't mean that the prices have gone back down before the record inflation just a year and a half ago. Wages, though, have also been rising at historic rates. And so even though there was a time at the peak of the inflation where wages were growing slower than prices were going up, now in the past few months, the opposite has been true. Wages have continued to rise or continued to grow as those price increases have come down. And so real wages, if you look at over the past 4 years or so, real wages are now starting to be up above where they were before the pandemic. So, you know, we can look at household income, we can look at per capita income, but it also is important to compare this to prices, because what does a dollar mean? It changes depending on what the prices are. Other piece is the federal government, as you know, had the child tax credit for when you see some of those dips in poverty rate a couple years ago. Then they let it lapse. Now they're bringing it back to some limited fashion, somewhere in between where we have been historically, where we were for the emergency measures. So hopefully that will continue to help assist our economy and drive down the poverty rate, especially, particularly those with families. Next slide, Kyle. Just a little delay. So it's important to just remind everyone of our strategic priorities. This is something that those who have served on the council for the last few years know very well. It's what we focus on during budget season. But of course, we just reiterate really quickly here. We focus on strong neighborhoods, safe community for everyone, making sure we're building the robust, sustainable infrastructure to help our city grow. Make sure that everybody has access to opportunity. So not just growth, but make sure that there's equity across the city. And then, of course, investing in youth and in our workforce to also continue to allow our city to grow and prosper. Some recent highlights, particularly in the neighborhood investment, so strong neighborhoods. Over the past few years, we've done a number of neighborhood plans, starting with the West Side Main Streets plan almost 10 years ago. Then the Southeast Neighborhood Plan was shortly thereafter. And then over the past 4 or 5 years, we've done the Near Northwest neighborhood, the Near West Side, Rum Village, the Northeast neighborhood, Kennedy Park, and Monroe Park. And in progress currently is LaSalle Park, River Park, and our comprehensive 2045 plan. So the comprehensive plan is a plan we do every 20 years or so. And this is that's why it's called the 2045 plan. And this really goes into beyond just land use, but other things that the strategies for our city and growth into the future. And there's been a lot of public engagement so far, but there's going to be even more engagement this year in 2024. So that's something that we'll hope to wrap up later this year or perhaps into 2025. But this is a major 20-year effort that the city undertakes, and I'd say we're about roughly halfway through that process currently. As folks know, thank you. The council approved a neighborhood implementation bond early last year, and so those projects are going to be coming. You'll start seeing those projects really moving here in short order. So, some of the highlights of those are the trail project from downtown to connect to the university on the east side, Mishawaka Avenue. Improvements going to the west side, the Martin Luther King Dream Center, the part of the financing package for that came out of this bond, as well as the Linden Street streetscape. There are a number of other projects. There's Walker Field down in the 6th District, as well as sidewalks on Elwood up over there by the Measle Park. So number of projects that will be moving and you'll see coming to fruition here this year and next from that bond implementation. Also, the rebuilding our streets continues, so still a priority. Know that we're still catching up on the needs of streets in our neighborhoods and across the city, and so we'll continue to share what we're able to do with the funding we have and keep catching up and getting our roads in better condition. We know that's a top priority of our residents, and that'll continue to be a priority for us. Curbs and sidewalks, we also, other neighborhood infrastructure. We did an assessment last year and still coming up with a full game plan. When we think of our backlog on streets, we've had enough money to pave every street roughly every 30 years. We know streets don't last 30 years. For sidewalks, it's much longer than that. So we have to work on different strategies to figure out how can we get on top of and maintain our curbs and sidewalks across the city. Safe community for everyone. As folks probably know, we became fully staffed in our police department for the first time in many years last summer, and thankfully we are still fully staffed. And now that we're in this situation as opposed to where we were for a number of years where we were double digits short, we need to figure out exactly what are the needs of the city, especially with a growing population. What are the needs going into the future for both police and fire to make sure that we have the resources and personnel necessary. The Real-Time Crime Center launched early last year and then really took off and will take off this year as well as we add more businesses and partners into the system, as well as this year is the first year with the expanded Crime Center analyst team. So excited about that. Also excited about later this week, we'll celebrate the opening of the Behavioral Crisis Center. That was a long time coming. A lot of work went into that. So excited to see that up and running here in short order. And then affordable housing. We know folks have been talking about the ability to find and stay in safe, affordable housing. And so we're excited. And there's on your agenda is one of the tax credit projects, or at least the city's portion. But we're working to get 3 tax credit projects across the finish line. There should mostly be underway here in a matter of weeks or a couple months, depending on the project. But that'll provide 160 new affordable units by the end of 2025. So that's exciting. There are a number of the new neighborhood home initiative that we undertook. The past 2 years is paying dividends. We're seeing more and more interest, more and more investment into new housing in the neighborhoods. So we'll continue to see those projects come forward and excited to see that. And that's something that we know neighbors, that'll be very visible to neighbors when you start seeing a lot of housing going up in neighborhoods. And some of these neighborhoods haven't seen that kind of construction or investment in a long time. Also, when we look at different redevelopment projects, we make sure to prioritize housing and housing across the board. So we've adopted, as you know, all of the above housing policy. We need more housing units of all types, from affordable to market rate and everything in between. So that's something we'll continue to prioritize here going forward. Here's the update on a slide many of you have seen a number of times, is the American Rescue Plan dollars. And so the current update is out of the $58.9 million we received from the federal government, 46.1% are out the door or fully committed to be out the door. Now, the remainder there is still in programs that are committed, just they don't have the full, it's not mature enough to say committed or out the door. So, for example, you look at which line items are, you look at the total spent committed column on the right, the projects or programs that do not have the full spend relative to the allocation. There's the housing financing comes up as one example. So there's an option if the current arrangement works out to extend and use those dollars to continue to make sure housing projects go forward. There's the additional, the things that have been spent, like the infrastructure, and the land bank is still in process. So there are a number of things that have gotten across the finish line. The main ones that are still waiting to move out are obviously the home buying assistance program is still under development. Some higher profile ones, there's solar projects take a while. There's some solar projects that are in the pipeline, but they're not reflected in the commitment column. But nevertheless, the projects are moving and moving forward as quickly as possible. And then, of course, the Opportunity Fund, the Community Investment Team will be looking to issue and get through an RFP process here shortly. And that process is looking not just to use the dollars from American Rescue Plan, but also to leverage dollars from other organizations in the process. So that's something we're excited to get out the door. The other one, there's two ones that I see Councilman Lee in the 1st District that would be of interest to him. The pre-K center item, as you know, the Far Northwest Community Center has been stalled for a variety of reasons, but hoping to pick that up now and get that moving here quickly. So that's that one piece. And then the other piece is, of course, the demolitions work and the work to clean up Drury's and get that ready for redevelopment continues. The EPA came in and provided a lot of assistance, but they weren't able to do everything necessary. And so that line item will help continue and finish that project. And then we hope there will be some remainder to clean up other sites in the city over on the near west side, making progress over there near Cherry Street as well. So those are things that aren't out the door, but clearly have, I believe, full buy-in from the city, from the residents, and from the council, and the team is working through those as quickly as possible. So now we get into the exciting finances of South Bend, the city of South Bend. We do take a view of 4 things: liquidity, debt, capital assets, and operations. And so starting with liquidity, we ended at the end of 2023 with a cash balance of just about $380 million. And that's about $18 million lower than we had at the end of 2022. So, we've been projecting budgeted deficits for a number of years. And as you see, we hadn't actually seen a decline for a number of years. Now, this is all cash balance, so this includes things you do want to spend out, like the ARP funds. They're in the door, but we have a plan to spend it, and we want to get it out the door. Also, capital projects. If we issue a bond, that neighborhood bond, $34 million, we didn't issue a bond to just have it sit in the bank. We issued the bond to do the project. So we do want to spend down those capital funds. And the ARP funds, similar redevelopment funds, are meant to go out and be spent. So this is, it's not a bad thing to see it going down here, but the next slide is where we do need to have a little bit of caution, although we'll get into the accounting here in a minute. But the general plus funds, if you recall, for 2023, we had a budgeted deficit of roughly $12 million. What actually occurred was about a $7.3 million deficit. So when we get into the budget process, as you know, projected deficits don't necessarily mean actual deficits. Now, if you also recall, we moved, for reporting to the federal government purposes, we moved ARP funds into the general fund at the end of 2022. So this deficit includes some of the ARP spend down, which was about $10 million in 2023. So, it's, again, a cause of, we know that we need to work to hone our budget and get it in the structural balance. And we have a great cushion. If you think of where do we need to be, the controller has set a 50% reserve in the general fund. So that means that we're looking to maintain a cash balance at or around 50% of the expenditures out of the general fund. And, that would be, we have a cushion here, I guess is the safe part to say. It's closer to where we were in the 2010s. But nevertheless, because we're starting to spend down this reserve, we do have to be careful about when we do take on new spending or how we do spend dollars going forward. So those are things I know returning members aren't going to be surprised about. We talked about that in budget season, that we will have to make some tough choices going forward, but it's not a time, it's not a time to panic, because we do have this reserve to be able to not make drastic changes, but to get into the right structural balance. So cash benchmarking, here we're just comparing South Bend to other cities around the state, and the data from the South Bend is current. The data from around the state is a few years old, but nevertheless it gives you a sense of where cities have historically been versus where South Bend is. And here you see South Bend is very high in terms of the cash reserve relative to expenditures. So 113% cash as a percentage of expenditures. Now, when we talk about expenditures here, we are talking about, we're not including interfund transfers during the budget process. So when you see the budget process, the number is usually higher, because that's how public finance works. If you have interfund transfers, it's an expenditure and then also a receipt of income. Even though the dollars have stayed in the city's bank, they've just moved from one fund to the other. Next, debt. We've been pretty stable in terms of debt, but we did issue two main pieces in the past couple of years. The first being the neighborhood implementation bond that we talked about just a little bit ago, as well as bonds for the sewer and water infrastructure. So those are reflected in our numbers, and we're up to over $270 million of debt from the city in terms of principal balance. But if you look at the payments that the city is required to make, and things that go into this are the term of the debt, the interest of the debt, and so the payments that the city is required to make on its debt has been pretty stable over time, as well as that as a percentage of total expenditures. So it's been pretty stable over the years. In fact, we're a little lower than we were 10 years ago, but not marginally different. And debt per capita, again, when we issued the sewer and water bonds, we moved back up to where we had been historically 10 or so years ago in debt per capita. And that places us pretty competitively across the state. We're just under Bloomington, and we're around Bloomington and West Lafayette. If you move the slide, Kyle, there, thank you. So, I'm not sure exactly what Evansville has done to get a $7,584 debt per capita, but we're right in the mix there with a lot of other cities, second-class cities across the state of Indiana. We like to brag about our bond rating. So AA bond rating, it's for those who don't follow bond ratings closely, it determines what rates you get when you go out into the market for debt. So it's a reflection of how reliable, how stable, and how strong of a financial position an entity is. So whether it's a business or a government, the bond rating lets investors know how risky the bond is. So AA rating is very strong, especially for a city of our size, and a city that's not within the donut counties of Indianapolis. So we're happy to have the AA bond rating. We're going to do everything we can to keep the AA bond rating. So when we think about issuing debt or other measures or what we do with the budget, we are keeping an eye on making sure that the financial markets view South Bend as in a strong financial position, and that they would maintain our rating of AA. So capital assets is where we are in terms of all of the things that the city has. So whether it's utilities and infrastructure, buildings, land improvements, and other things that are in progress. The total construction costs, if we were to have to build them all today, is over $1.1 billion. As assets age, they lose their value. And so the net book value is just under $500 million. And so the average useful life remaining of these assets is about 17 years. And if someone wants to do the math, you can say how much do we need to be investing to maintain our asset structure. You could just divide the net book value by the years remaining and get an idea of annual expenditure needs on capital projects. And we've stayed roughly in that range. Last year may look a little low, but there are a lot of projects that were pushed from last year into this year, so we do expect this year to be a spike year. So you really want to look at kind of the average over a number of years to see how we're doing on capital spending. And then finally, operations. So here's a picture of the operating funds themselves. And the first column is revenue, second column is expenditures. Then there's accounting, our accounting basis, which is the accrual system. But really, the net is what you want to look at in terms of these funds. So the first, when we talked about the general plus funds, we talk about that in our general government operations funds. And that includes the general fund, the low-income tax public safety fund, the low-income tax certified shares, economic development, et cetera. So those are what we call the general plus funds. So you really need to look at those funds as a combined unit. And one difference this year versus in the past is the state has moved the local income tax certified shares, what used to be called COIT, to be part of the general fund. So you see there was a transfer of $14.4 million that went into the general fund. But that it's basically because the COIT dollars or the certified shares were able to be treated just like general fund dollars, whereas the local income tax dollars that are dedicated to public safety or economic development do have some restrictions on what they can be used for. But never, so there's the combination of the 404 and 101. And then also, when you're looking at how are the funds doing overall from an operational standpoint, you also want to add in the other income tax funds to see the balance, and the income tax supported department funds. And as I said, the general plus funds had a $7.3 million deficit last year that did include ARP spending. But then when you look at other funds, like those in the enterprises, like our solid waste, wastewater, and water, enterprise funds need to balance out over time. They're based off of fees generally, and so they need to make sure that the costs are matching the revenue coming in based off of the rates coming in. So solid waste was in the black this year. Now it's good news, because I know many of you have been used to seeing that in the red each and every year. They did receive some of the dollars that had been allocated for those who are unable to pay their bills. So that did help with the balance. But nevertheless, we do hope that we continue to see that stay in the black as we move forward. The sewer, you see the wastewater operations, which actually includes, you see the funds 641 through 649 actually includes the other funds that wastewater operates out of. There were a number of projects that were pushed, that were expected from last year and are pushed to this year. So that $9 million may seem like a big surplus. There are a lot of projects that were expected to go last year that will actually happen this year. And you can go back to the capital spend. We saw a dip in the capital spend wastewater and water capital is a big part of our capital expenditures. And so that dip is artificial too, because we're going to see a spike this year on capital expenditures. Now, some really good news. As you know, in the budgeting process the last couple of years, it's been very difficult to figure out how to budget, because when inflation was really high, we didn't know how much things were going to cost. Things just continually went up. But we also didn't know how much money we were going to get. And so that's the challenge with it. I mean, that's why the Federal Reserve sets, wants stable pricing and wants to set policy to maintain stable pricing, because it's very hard to figure out our budget or plan ahead if you have no idea what things are going to cost. And then from a government, you don't know how long it's going to take for those inflationary impacts to work their way back, either through property taxes or income taxes. But nevertheless, the inflation and the cost increases have found their way into the property market here in South Bend, and you see a major increase there in property tax revenues, split between the Civil City and the redevelopment funds. And similarly, a big jump in income tax revenue last year. Again, this is something we know wages have been going up, and so but there is a delay in terms of when the wages that are paid, the taxes on wages paid, are paid to the state, and when the local governments get them. And so this is, the fact that wages are continuing to rise even as we speak, speaks to us knowing that we will see continued increases. It's hard to say exactly how much, but we will see increases over the coming years, as long as the economy stays strong, as long as, unemployment rate near historic lows, wages rising faster than the rate of inflation. Those are all positive signs. Now, obviously, that's not going to continue indefinitely. It's almost impossible to continue wages rising faster than inflation unless there's extreme productivity gains. But nevertheless, this is good news for our economy and good news for our local budget here. And then here's the breakdown of where our full-time employees are for the city. And so roughly half are in police and fire. Another roughly quarter are in public works. And then the balance is venue, parks and arts, community investment, and the general government services. And here's the trend over time. We have increased the actual number. So there's the budgeted number, and then there's the actual number. This is the actual number. You see that low in 2021 when we were having a very difficult time hiring and retaining the workers. This happened across many industries, but it also affected city government. So we saw a decline there. But we need to keep it, as we look toward getting our budget in structural balance, we do need to be careful about this full-time employee number. And those are long-term, every employee has a lot to offer. We know we can always do more with more employees, but we need to be very careful when we do look to add employees, because that's something that is added to this structural deficit that we have. Similarly, here's the good news of health costs. Before the clinic was activated in 2016, and healthcare costs for the city were rising well above the rate of inflation at the time, 6.61% annually. And since then, 2016 to 2023, it's, medical costs still generally rise above the rate of inflation, but inflation in the last couple of years is higher, but historically been closer to 2%, but 2.8% annually, which is obviously much more manageable than the cost escalations before the clinic. So what does this all mean for those? I know we're probably falling asleep, perhaps, unless you really love these finances. But if we try to convert the annual revenue, operating revenue, and here we're using the ones without interfund transfers, so $313 million. If you have $359 million cash on hand in the bank, and you have assets worth $493 million, and you have debt principal about $250 million. I think I misread the slide beforehand. The household equivalent would be, if you were a median household income making $49,000 a year, that would be the same as having $56,000 in your savings or checking account. Having assets worth equity in your house or equity somewhere else worth $77,000, and having debt, whether it's the remainder of your mortgage or else student loans, remaining of $39,000. So, you know, if you were to look at this household, or any financial advisor would look at this household, they'd say, you're in a pretty strong financial position. And that's exactly what the financial agents and the ratings agencies see about South Bend, and that's why we do have the AA bond rating. So we'll just go quickly about what's coming up here and what was passed in the 2024 budget and what we're getting underway. So you know, we have the staffing level in the police department at 252 for 2024. And as I said, we are looking to see what is the need now that we're at the full staffing levels. What are the number of officers we need to get the job done? The real-time crime center operations are continuing to expand and add new partners. The homelessness strategy implementation continues. This year, there's going to be a focus on customer service as we transition into new City Hall, hopefully early 2025. And so the idea there is we want to get to a one-stop shop service to residents, so they don't have to try to figure out where to go for a city service. They can just go to one place and know that they can be helped and get their issue addressed. So obviously 311 is the one-stop shop if you're calling into the city, but now there'll be a physical one-stop shop at the new City Hall next year. And in anticipation of that, there's some combinations with utility front-facing staff as well as 311 staff, and working through those pieces as we look to the new City Hall. The rebuilding our streets, the 2.0 plan, we know we got to do more, and there's a lot of streets left to rebuild. So that's what we're continued and committed to doing, making sure that our neighborhoods have the infrastructure that they deserve, as well as make sure there's equity across the entire city and across neighborhoods in their infrastructure. We're continuing to make investments in climate action plan. It's, as we learned in the pandemic, global problems come on us from the outside, but progress and things have to happen here locally to get it done. Whether you were talking about the vaccine clinic and the pandemic, to actually make progress on climate action, we've got to do things here locally. And so we'll continue to prioritize that here in our investments and going forward. We talked about the neighborhood and VPA capital projects. We're excited to see those come online and continue to be rolled out. Community initiatives in VPA, so different programming, as well as the gun violence intervention program, working to get that fully tuned together with other initiatives. Continuing to adopt best practices in innovation and technology. Things are moving fast. AI is here, and so we got to be careful how we use that, but it's certainly not, it's going to be a part of every facet of our life in the coming years, and we do have to prepare for that. And continue to make sure that we're a great employer with great employees, giving those cost of living adjustments to attract and retain talent. So then upcoming projects, we talked about the neighborhood bond projects that will be ongoing, the sewer and water capital investments that will be going on. Already been approved financing, but just need to get those projects going and into the ground. The Beacon District project is moving, as well as other READY projects, the READY 1.0 projects. I mentioned the Opportunity Fund, that should be going for the RFP here shortly. And the financial empowerment also looking to figure out how those operations will go. Now, things that are new are on the right side, are not necessarily new, but coming to you here sometime this year. The PSCDA bond in upgrades. If you recall, the state legislature had increased the amount of dollars, these are state dollars, that would stay here locally to be invested in these projects. And so they've allowed up to $5 million a year of captured revenues of what otherwise would go to the state to be used for these purposes. And of course, the marquee project here that they had envisioned and everyone had envisioned is upgrades to Kovaleski Stadium and Four Winds Field. So that's moving forward, and there will need to be the financing piece at some point to keep that going forward. The new neighborhood homes, like I said, the policies and the growth that's been going on in the city have attracted a lot more interest and energy into rebuilding our neighborhoods. And so there will be some financing that will need to come through the Common Council to help facilitate some of these projects and make sure that we can retain affordable housing as a component of these. Ready 2.0, as you know, the state passed another historic investment into regional and local economies. It was $500 million across the state. And then Eli Lilly has just added $250 million into that level. And that gets administered by the Regional Development Authority. And the agency that helps facilitate the work on that is the South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership. So we're working with fellow governments in the area, cities, counties, as well as the partnership and the RDA to figure out how to best take advantage of the Ready 2.0 dollars. Now they are just making the application to the state now to get our share of those dollars. And then after that, they will have a process for how to evaluate various projects across the region. But we have a lot of exciting projects here locally that we hope they will decide warrant their support. And then as something that's hit the news quite a bit lately, the Low Barrier Intake Center. As many of you know, we've been looking for a site for a number of years. We've been told no by a number of property owners saying they do not want to make their property available for this purpose. And so currently there is only one piece of property that we have available for this purpose that we think is best suited for that. And I do thank Councilman Troy Warner for his vote on the Redevelopment Commission in support of that. Of course, we are also continuing to look for better alternatives. And that process continues to move forward. And if we can find a better alternative, that's great. Or if we can revisit one of the alternatives that we were told no, that would be great. But at the end of the day, failure is not an option on this. We've got to come up with a site, and we've got to come up with a solution. So we're not going to be rushing through this process by any means, but at the end of the day, we can't wait another 5 years. We can't kick this can down the road indefinitely. So with that, happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mayor, for your presentation. I really appreciate it. At this time, I will turn to my colleagues. You get 2 questions. I will start with Councilwoman White. Okay, thank you. I will, Dr. Davis.
Thank you so much for the great report. It's a lot easier coming back on council in 2024 than it was coming in 2008, when you consider the financial situation that we were in at the time. So it's a lot easier for us to deal with. From that standpoint, as the economy is a lot better, and the projection of the cities, your report was very encouraging. Couple of things that I present now. We have a lot more to do later on, but just for is there a deadline for this new ones coming on in terms of submitting the curb and sidewalks for you for recommendations? I know of those who were here last year may have already got theirs inputted in, but for those of us who are new, is there something?
There is a process that Public Works will share, and we can get that information to you.
Okay, because I know people have already started asking for that. So.
Oh yeah, there's a great need.
So thank you for that. And then in terms of the 12 million, close to 12 million, and the still out there that you said, but not, in terms of, they're not out of the door yet. When will we get a chance to finalize, put some door hangers on those? And what would be our role as council to make sure that we can have input into those, that 12 million?
Sure. So, I mean, a lot of that isn't, like I said, isn't committed or spent in that bucket is still in a program that's moving. So, you know, two that are come to mind is home repair program as well as the small business assistance program. Even though the number looks like there's a big change, there's a big gap there, it is moving forward. That's what funds the Vibrant Places grant that a lot of folks use, and then the home repair grant again looks like you know, there's money that hasn't been allocated or spent. So we've seen these and believe these are the allocated purposes that council gave us for these funds, and so we're continuing to roll those out. Now, I mean, I will say candidly, the one that is not as far along or could be rethought is the home buying assistance dollars. That's one that doesn't have a plan, isn't moving as quickly as we would like. So, you know, there are a couple instances like that where there's potentially more flexibility if we wanted to pivot, go in a different direction. But otherwise, some of those, you know, and we'd be happy to go through which ones are more where they are in, you know, each individual item in the process.
Okay, I look forward to that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, President McBride. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being here this evening and for your report. I just a quick, simple question. Would you be able to make these slides available
Sure.
to us? Thank you. And then just, I got a little confused just with the, could you just clarify really quickly the debt numbers? There was, I think I did hear a different number and just wanted to make sure that, so just really briefly, that debt profile included the neighborhood, both those neighborhood bonds, and what was that?
It included the neighborhood bonds and the sewer bonds,
sewer bonds.
yeah, that were issued last year. I do not believe it includes the Beacon District Series B bond. Is that right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, President McBride. Thank you, Mayor, for the presentation. It was pretty thorough, I think, and I would appreciate it if you could send us the presentation of that slide, especially that chart that shows all the ARP spending. As you know, many of our council members like to kind of track that and compare that over the past couple of years. So take a little more time to examine that slide. That was a lot of information, but I surely appreciate the presentation.
Thank you. Councilman Lee?
Thank you, Mayor, for your presentation. I really would like to talk about how you frame the way that our debt looks like in our city being, monitors me.
You getting too excited, Councilman Lee?
Thank you for putting that out there, Councilwoman. But I, you know, a lot of times people look at debt and say the city is in this kind of debt, but the way that you phrased it and showed it as with the amount of money, the $56,000 in the bank, and making $49,000, and that just for the people who may want to look at the city's in debt, but can you just explain that one more time so that the common people can understand that that although we're in debt, it's good debt, and we're financially strong.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference. If you are borrowing money, like for example, in a household, if you are using your credit card to stay afloat, keep on top of monthly expenses, That's obviously not good debt, right? You're paying high interest rates and you're trying to struggle to keep your monthly payments. Now, if you're making investments in a house, for example, in a household, that's a good debt. That's an investment for you. You can build equity into it, and you have a place to live instead of waiting to save up for the whole balance of the house. That will continue to get more expensive. As you save money, it's going to continue to get more expensive as inflation makes the prices increase. So that's going to be a moving target as you go on into the future. So instead of saving all this money, and this is a good example for the PSCDA bond and the Four Winds improvements. You know, you could say, okay, the state has given you $5 million a year over 20 years. And you could just save all that money and wait till the end of the time, and then that's when we're going to do the project. But we know the project is going to be a lot more expensive 20 years from now than it is today, so that's not going to be worth the same amount. And second, you're not going to have a stadium for 20. You're not going to be able to enjoy those improvements for 20 years. And so, whether it's a city government, whether it's a business, a startup, debt financing, there's a reason why these services exist. Because they do offer value. They allow folks to bring money forward and invest them in ways. Now, you can always, whether it's cash today or debt, you can always make wise investments or you can make poor investments. What matters is, are you doing the things that make it, are you making the right investments? And so that's what we should be focused on, especially when you're considering debt, but even in the annual budget process. There's where the dollars are going is important. We've been focused on capital projects that we believe will not just, you have this amenity that you can enjoy without having to wait longer to have it, but also amenities that have an additive effect that help raise a neighborhood, help raise the city, and help make sure that we continue to grow.
Thank you. And then the other question is, what is it going to take to get our home buyer program up and moving? Because we know that home ownership is the bedrock of stabilizing families and stabilizing communities. What will it take to get the home buyer program up and moving?
Well, the short answer would, our staff, the good news is we have all this record growth. We have all these things going on. We have the state helping us. We had the federal government helping us. The bad news is we didn't grow in capacity overnight to do this. So the team has moved dollars out as best they can, as quickly as they can, and that's one that just hadn't made it to the top because there wasn't as clear of a path forward to get there. But I know that the community investment team is working hard and will move as quickly as possible. So maybe multiply people would be the short answer, but knowing that it is a priority and we will get to it here quickly.
Thank you.
Councilor Holden Simpson.
Thank you for your presentation. At this time, I'm feeling full, and I'm going to chew on this, and I look forward to you sharing that presentation so I can digest it. Thank you.
Councilor Warren.
Yeah, thank you. I chimed the bell a little bit and at the end of our budget season last year on this, and I've kind of, reading through the lines here. We've passed deficit budgets going back, I think, the last 5 or 6, and those first few years, in the end, we didn't spend as much money as we planned, and so we didn't end up with a deficit. That's now changed. Do you anticipate us having to make some cuts this coming year to the budget to kind of get that balance back in, or spending more of the reserves down? Or I know I'm asking you to look at a crystal ball, but we're not too far off from budget season. I'm just curious, kind of right now, where do you see that going?
I think, as I mentioned in the last budget season, is we are going to have to start making tougher choices. We didn't have that same degree of urgency to do that when we weren't having realized the deficit. We'd had some budgeted, but we kept having surpluses at the end of the year. So now that that's flipped, we certainly need to be focused on that and make sure that we're guiding our costs, our expenditures in a way that's sustainable with the revenue that's expected to come in. Now, if you had asked us, would we be, would the income tax receipts jump by that amount? I mean, there's still a very difficult degree of predictability in how all of this cost inflation is working through the system and ends up into, into local government receipts. So it's unclear what to expect going forward in revenue. Because we're a growing city, I've said we can grow into this budget. We have to figure out how to grow into this budget. And that means there may be some choices where we do have to make cuts. But even if things were going well, there's always things that have to be revisited and reallocated so that we're serving the residents as best we can. So even in normal times where things, there isn't this kind of urgency from a deficit here, you want to be thinking about how do we utilize taxpayer dollars as efficiently and effectively as possible. And so that work is always there, but we will have to hone it a little more. I think there's no time to panic because we do have this cushion of a healthy reserve level, but it's something that we need to be focused on in budget season. And when there are new things being proposed, we have to try to find offsets whenever possible.
Thank you for your comments. Counselor Ophelia Rogers. Good.
Yes, thank you for that wonderful report this evening. I would like to know, how will the general public know about the home buyers program?
Well, we haven't launched it yet, so we gotta work to get that developed, and then of course we'd get the word out and look to council members and others to help us get the word out.
Thank you.
Vice President Ms. Gaspar.
Thank you, President McBride. I just realized the other question that I had. When we talk about all these programs, some that have not been rolled out yet, of course, your staff only has a certain capacity rolling out these programs. Typically, is it 6 months to a year to actually develop, when we're talking about all of those programs that are helping in the community and our residents? 6 months, a year, is that a fair expectation on how long it actually takes to develop and deliver a program such as the home buying program, for example?
Yeah, in normal times, that would be fair to say. As you look at the ARP programs, a lot of them were focused on one group of one team in the city. And so it was you were coming up with a lot of programs, asking the same team to come up with a lot of programs all at the same time without really adding significant bandwidth or capacity. So that, they're working through it as quickly as they can. It's not that they haven't been working on it, but some of these other ones have been able to get across the finish line earlier.
Counselor White.
Thank you, Mayor, for your presentation. I was just trying to think through some questions. In regards to the home repair program, this has been one that we've been trying for a number of years to get moving forward. Which strategies would you suggest that we can get this part? Because I know that the home repair program is a major concern for a number of our citizens, especially the seniors.
Yeah, that's a great question, and some of the strategies the team has adopted here is streamlining the process for residents and homeowners who are selected for the home repair program in terms of how they access contractors and get the job done. So historically, there's been a lot of burden to find multiple quotes, and for a good reason, to make sure that no contractor was taking advantage of taxpayer dollars and by giving an artificially high quote. Nevertheless, contractors have been busy across the region, and that had been a barrier over the years. So the team has worked on figuring out how to streamline those processes for residents who are eligible and get an award.
So will you keep the council abreast of the progress, because citizens are reaching out to us so that we can give them the right information so that we won't have a lot of different information going out that has not been validated?
Absolutely, and I don't want to give our community investment team more work, but I think they would love to come talk to a council committee of your choice to really go through the ins and outs of the program and get that information out.
My last question is, or statement is, that you had mentioned that we need to be mindful as we move forward with our full-time employee ratio. But as we begin to look at the needs to move these programs out, how do we balance that? And still be mindful of what we have indicated that we need to be, watching.
That is the essence of the question of budget time and how we best allocate resources. Government's not quite as nimble of an employer as the private sector, so we can't expand and contract at the same rate for many reasons as the private sector. So that's what we've done. They've been making do. They've gotten a lot of the dollars out, a lot of the programs going. But not everyone has been able to get out as quickly as we'd like. I don't know, looking forward, what the resources are. I don't expect another major federal government investment like we saw in the past couple of years in terms of the American Rescue Plan dollars. I would love if the state gave us, found more resources for us, but there's no clear avenue for that. So, I think right now we're trying to work our way through and with what we have and make sure we can deliver all these programs with what we have.
Thank you. With that, the rest of the council, if you have any additional questions, you can please email me or the clerk's office for us to get more information from the mayor's office. Thank you. At this time, I will open it up and see if there are any questions from the public before we move on. Anyone wishing to ask questions? Yes, come on. Come up to the podium, state your name and address.
Hello, my name is Matthew Deal, and I live at 52032 Iron Forge Court in Granger, Indiana. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, for your presentation. I actually found it quite interesting. I did not fall asleep. I took some good notes. My question is just asking if you could put it in some simple terms. I saw the numbers from the property tax and the local income tax and how they were far higher, and I know you attributed that a lot to inflation, but I was just wondering if you could explain kind of in layman terms to common people like me, how those revenues could be so far up, yet us running a deficit. Thank you.
Excellent question, my rising star.
No, that's a great question, and I'm going to try to think of how to explain this as simply as possible. We knew prices for city services, whether it's how much we have to pay our employees, those were going up, as well as material costs. So when we're paving a road, those costs went up with the cost of inflation. So generally speaking, the way the income tax process works, for example, is, of course, the state collects the income tax. There's a state income tax, and then there's a local income tax, but the state collects it all and then distributes the portion for the local governments. There's usually a lag time between when they collect it and when they disperse that to the cities and counties across the state. So in many ways, we had projected in our estimates, if we had spent every dollar we budgeted for, we had projected a bigger deficit than what we actually saw. And that's something that we've seen in the past several years. We have a budgeted deficit because we're very conservative with costs. So for example, there's turnover of workers throughout the year, but we budget as if every department is fully staffed for the entire year. And so if we don't do that, and then we are fully budgeted, then we may have obligations to our workers that we'd have to come back and, of course, I believe our Common Council would appropriate those dollars, but there's no guarantee that we would be able to uphold our obligations and commitments. So it's a very conservative budget process which sets this goalpost of how much we're going to spend. And because of that, even though we saw a deficit, the actual deficit was much lower than what we had projected. And part of that is due to the fact that the revenues increased more than we had expected because we didn't expect them to increase that quickly.
Thank you.
But that's the hard part. I guess going back to it, this is why stable price. This is when people say, "Why is the Federal Reserve keep hammering about? Why are they raising interest rates? Why are they doing this to our economy?" But because they're focused on maintaining stability in prices. Because if you don't know how much things are going to cost, and for government, then you don't have any idea what you're going to receive in. It makes it very hard to make a plan of any sort going forward.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Next, can I pause for 1 second to see if youth council, are there any other questions that you would like to ask of the mayor? If not, Ms. White is asking for me to dismiss you, so I know you guys have to go, and we appreciate you guys coming tonight. Thank you for your service and all that you've done and your great questions, and for coming tonight. Go home, go to bed, you got school tomorrow. Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming.
Good evening, Sue Kesselman, 422 Kennedy Drive. The current debt is $243,315,299. If we add to that the $60 million for the beacon, that brings our debt up to $300 million. I want you to stop thinking of it as good debt. $15 million a year in interest is not a positive. I asked the council, what would you do with an extra $15 million a year with no debt? $300 million in debt is 75% of a year of our city's budget of $417 million. As I've sat through many of these, my question is, the mayor seems to keep leaving out interest and only giving principal amounts. We owe all of it, and interest is a drag on other things. So when you keep the referral of good debt comes with the expense of a lot of interest. And I want you guys to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else?
Yes, Logan Foster, 1138 College Street. So Mayor Mueller just said, there's a reason debt financing exists. And with all due respect, Mr. Mayor, the reason that debt financing exists is because the people financing the debt are making money off of it. And when we keep financing debt, they're making money off of us, the taxpayers. And so I just want you to think about that you just made that statement that there's a reason that debt financing exists. Well, that's the reason. And it's just irresponsible.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else? Clerk Dorado, do you have anything? Come up to the podium, please. Please state your name and address for the record. Clerk Dorado, do you see anyone online with their hand up?
I do not see anyone online wanting to give a statement.
Thank you. Sir?
William Hazel, 1376 Berkshire Drive. Oh, sorry, not close enough. William Hazel, 1376 Berkshire Drive, South Bend, Indiana. The thing that I thought was interesting that I hadn't really put a lot of thought into when he was talking about financing is when we do think about projected value, like when I purchased my house years ago, I knew that at the point that it was paid for, that, say for example, a $75,000 house, at the point that it's paid for is a $150,000 house. And so even though I'm spending interest to borrow that money, and at the end of the day, say perhaps I did spend $200,000 total, I still have a value at the end that is significantly high proportion of what, I'm going to get back at the point that I would sell it. And as he pointed out, you have the use of the asset that you've borrowed against, to purchase. And so it becomes one of those things where you do have to sometimes take an attitude with debt where debt per se is not a good thing, but if you balance it against your current value and the future value of the asset, then instead of just saying, okay, I spent $100,000 on financing, well, yes, I did, but because of the change in the value over the time, maybe at the net that I've spent was $50,000. So the total cost can be something that you can rationalize as, while it's not good, it can have a solid benefit. So I really like the fact that he made the point of, this is only going to cost us this much money now, we'll get the value for it, and at the end, because we didn't save, if I had always saved to buy a house, I would have never been able to afford one. But because I could take a loan and pay down towards the principal, eventually you're in that other side. So I know it's not an easy thing for folks, and I don't like debt myself, but it is a nice way to start to think about the fact that it's making life better for us, not only currently, but in the future. So that was just kind of what I wanted to add in.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your comments. I appreciate it. No more questions or comments, sir? Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Jacob Kea, address 3948 Pelican Way, 46628. And I just wanted to ask about what opportunities the mayor and the councilmen and councilwomen are looking at to reducing operating expenses. I know that obviously as the city grows and develops, operating expenses are going to go up. But I wanted to ask if there are any possibilities people are looking at in terms of like eliminating programs that might feel good but aren't actually working. For example, maybe an anti-crime initiative sounds good, feels good, but it's not really reducing crime. A homeless initiative sounds good, feels good, you're doing something, but you're not actually assisting the problem of homelessness. So I just wanted to ask if any people had any ideas about this, or if there are any initiatives to reduce programs that aren't actually working for the city.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
I can have the mayor come up if you choose to, but one of the things I can say for the council, the mayor sets the budget, and the council's role, we cannot increase the budget, only decrease the budget. So we do look at items to see what are effective and work with administration to see what is working and what's not working. But if the season comes and the budget cycle moves forward, the council do have input of what we wish to happen and would like to see happen in the various sectors of our neighborhoods, and 3 council at large for the entire city as a whole. So a lot of the things that you saw today in the presentation came from some of the initiation of the council. So we do look at those items such as housing. We look at those items as far as the curbs and sidewalks, and give our feedback and ask for increased items and additional allocations for the roads and curbs. So we do take the time to look at that all year long. The budget season starts early, I believe in like April, and we work all the way until October, November before it's passed. So we have a lot of time to look at the budget, see what's presented, and recommend projects to come for the residents, and also ones that may not be working. So I can speak on behalf of the council as far as that work, and we do work in hand with the mayor with those items. I hope that answers your question. Anyone else? If not, thank you. The public portion is now closed. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for your presentation. We appreciate it and look forward to the address of the city. Thank you. We haven't had a date locked down yet, or the place. It would be in April. I will get that date as soon as we get it.
Motion to resolve the committee of the whole.
It's been a motion. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion's carried. Thank you. Now we will go into the committee of the whole.
Committee of the Whole is now in session, and this is the portion of the council's meeting where bills are given a second reading and public hearing. I wish to share with you that bills that will be given a second reading and public hearing have been given a first reading and set for a committee meeting and public hearing prior to this evening's meeting. In addition, you will hear from the chairperson of the committee where the bill was discussed and the results of their discussion. If the proposed ordinance is a zoning ordinance, a report from the staff member will be given. In all other situations, the formal presentation on the proposed ordinance will immediately follow the committee report. The formal presentation shall be on time. Clerk Toronto, would you please give Bill 07-24 a second reading?
Bill 0724, public hearing on an ordinance of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving a petition of the Advisory Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 609 LaPorte Avenue, Councilmanic District Number 2 in the City of South Bend, Indiana.
Is there a committee report?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the Zoning and Annexation Committee met this afternoon, and we bring this bill to you with a favorable recommendation.
All right, petitioner is present, and I ask that you state your name and address and share with us key points regarding the bill that's before us.
This is Skip Morrell, zoning specialist with offices on the 14th floor of this building. And this first bill you're hearing is for 609 LaPorte Avenue. Petitioner is Northwood Investments, LLC. And this is a request for a special exception to allow for a 2-unit dwelling in a U1 zoned district. So for some context, this is the location of that home and kind of wider shot. The petitioner is requesting a special exception to legalize a duplex. This building has been used as a duplex for a number of years now. This area has seen a decline of about 26% in population over the past 60 years, and legalizing this use as a duplex would help to complement the existing housing stock and provide a relatively affordable housing option. And it's also consistent with the city plan, the South Bend Comprehensive Plan objective of encouraging residential developments to contain a mix of housing types, densities, price ranges, and amenities. You may have noted the written commitment we've included. There's nothing unique to this property. This is just a practice that we're employing to kind of ensure greater compliance with all the relevant codes. In this case, for a duplex, that would be going through the RSVP, which is the Rental Safety Verification Program, and then registering as a landlord. And then also the other part of this written commitment is just making it more clear the city's power to inspect and to enforce the standards for buildings. It's also important, we believe, that it's tying in the zoning element, the granting the special exception, to other enforcing bodies such as the Neighborhood Development and Housing Inspecting Team, so that the acceptance as a duplex would also be tied to following all those other standards for housing to keep homes safe. So this comes to you from the Board of Zoning Appeals with a favorable recommendation subject to the written commitment, which in short is that the owner will maintain the real estate and structures thereon in compliance with the South Bend Municipal Code and specifically the Property Maintenance Code and all existing pertinent codes, and also that the written commitment would include the property owner consenting to property inspections as authorized by any law or City of South Bend Municipal Code to determine compliance with and enforcement of all applicable codes.
All right. Is the other petitioners online? Would you like to make any statements?
Hello, this is Tim Whiterquist. I am the owner-manager of Northwood Investments, who owns this home. I've owned the home for approximately 5 years. At the time of purchase, it was in use as a duplex. There is a full bath and kitchen on the second floor, full bath and kitchen on the first floor that both appear to be at least 60 years old. So long-time duplex. And improvements are being made now. It has steel siding, which is inflammable. New roof. I am enrolled in the RSVP program, hope to be, and believe I have a track record as a responsible landlord. Northwood Investments also owns the home behind this, 2 across the street. All of those homes have recently been checked for smoke alarms. All of the tenants have been instructed on keeping secondary means of egress open, and we want to keep these homes safe, attractive, and clean living spaces for the city of South Bend.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Council members, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could the petitioner please state their address for the record for this part of the meeting?
I'm sorry. Yeah, 1929 Dorwood Drive, beautiful South Bend, Indiana, 46617.
I'm glad you did that because both of our petitioners are local landlords tonight, and it's nice to see that they are both here and that they have had good track records.
Any other council members with any questions? Yes, Councilman Rachel Thomas Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank you for pointing out the written commitment there, and we had this discussion in committee, but do you have a timeline in which you will be following up with landlords on inspections and ensuring that they have registered?
Right, so immediately after, if the duplex is granted, we require the landlord registration, and then the RSVP would be in place before they were able to use it as a duplex. So before they were going to actually rent it, they would have to go through that inspection process. And it would fall on the zoning team to reach out to neighborhoods and ask for that inspection to take place.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes. When all that is done, do you notify the council too? Or can you, or will you notify the council?
We can, yes, we can do
I
that.
appreciate that.
Yes.
So we all will have a good understanding.
Sure.
Anyone else? I just want to say that for the petitioner that's online, what made you decide to buy these houses in that area?
I participated in some seminars in incremental development. Northwood Investment has 27 properties in South Bend. We've been investing in South Bend for about 15 years. And then this cluster it seemed to fit the concept of a farm where you're building one spot and the properties around sort of feed off each other and create organic growth. And the guy across the street on Fosnack, I happen to know him as well, Tony Harris. His home has always been really sharp, and I'm like, all right, Tony's right there, that one's a rock, and we're gonna keep building, was the idea.
Up around that area, and that house it's been pink, it's been electric blue, it's been, so when I saw the new siding on it, I said, thank you, somebody with some good taste is trying to do something different in this area. All right, anyone else, no one else has any questions? At this time, I'll go to the public. Clerk Torado, is there anyone from the public looking to speak in support of Bill 07-24?
There is no one online wishing to speak in favor of the bill.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
There is no one online wishing to speak in opposition.
At this point, the public hearing on Bill 07-24 is now closed. I will now entertain a motion regarding the bill.
Chair, can I just have one more comment, please?
Yes.
I just want to thank you, sir, for your investment in this part of the city. I drive along LaPorte on a regular basis, and so it's been really exciting to see the renovations that you're doing on that corner. Thank you very much for your investment.
You have warmed my heart. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Motion to send forward with favorable recommendation.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Clerk Toronto, please call the roll.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson,
Aye.
Councilmember White, Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Golden Rogers,
Aye.
Vice President Niskoski, President McBride. All nine.
All right. Bill 07-24 will be sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation. Clerk Toronto, please give Bill 08-24 a second reading.
08-24, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving a petition of the Advisory Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 826 South Bendix Drive, Councilmanic District Number 6 in the City of South Bend, Indiana.
Is there a committee report?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The Zoning and Annexation Committee met this afternoon, and we bring Bill 0824 to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
We see that the petitioner is here. I ask that you state your name and address for the record and share with us key points regarding this bill.
Sure. This is Bill 8-24 for 826, Skip Morrell, zoning specialist, offices on the 14th floor of this building. This is Bill 8-24 for 826 South Bendix Drive. Petitioner is William C. Hazel Jr. And this is the building as it exists now. And then for some context, the location. This is a request for a special exception to allow for a 2-unit dwelling in a U1 zoned district. This house was built as a duplex in 1926. It was designed as a duplex, and it has a mirrored floor plan with separate entrances to each unit, as you can see on the left and the right with those separate stairs. So this is about legalizing the 2-unit dwelling, which should not be injurious to the general welfare of the community, as it's existed in its current state for almost 100 years at this point. It is also consistent with the city plan, South Bend Comprehensive Plan objective of encouraging residential developments to contain a mix of housing types, densities, price ranges, and amenities. This comes to you from the Board of Zoning Appeals with a favorable recommendation subject to that same written commitment.
All right. Do we have the additional petitioner that's here?
Yes.
All right. I ask that you will come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
William C. Hazel Jr., 1376 Berkshire Drive, South Bend, Indiana. I just kind of got the whole thing on the financing thing I thought was interesting because I've been through so much of that in my life that, you know, it's just a nice way to look at things. So not to sidetrack us, but I bought this house a few months back and in the process discovered that UN zoning, while I knew it did allow for 2-family, it wasn't automatic. And so as I knew that the house was single family for taxes, and so then I got involved in the process of, okay, what do I need to do so that I'm legal when both units are rented out? So that was kind of the crux of how I got started on all this. The lady that I purchased the house from, and inherited it from her parents, she said about mid-60s they bought the house. And so it was always used either in combination with close family or close friends that always lived on the other side. And so I don't think there was probably ever an issue before when it was rented, you know, in the past. But obviously with it changing ownership and everything, we wanted to get that done. I've never actually purchased a property with the purpose of renting it before, so I'm just kind of coming up to speed with how the city has things set up. So like the registration and things. I still have some work I want to do there, which is basically cosmetic. I've got some paint and carpet kinds of things. Overall, the house is in pretty good shape. It's been lived in continuously, you know, up until the time that I purchased it. So, you know, kind of looking forward to getting things taken care of the rest of the way so I can be in a good spot, you know, to get the first unit rented. Because the plan is get one done and then finish cleaning the other side up. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Council members, do you have any questions for the petitioners? I have one question. Is how does a house that's 100 years old that's been a duplex not be zoned as a duplex?
Well, you have to consider when zoning was created.
I'm talking to the.
Right. So, in order to be legally a duplex, you have to show, I believe since 1960, I want to say, that there's been continual use as a duplex without a 12-month lapse. So the practicality of actually finding those records stretching back 60 years, it's easier to just kind of go through the legalization process, and then we have a paper trail to show now anytime permits are being pulled, anytime work's being done on the house, to show that it's a legal duplex in a U1 zone district. So that's kind of the reason why a lot of these have been coming through.
Because we've been noticing a lot of them. And
Sure.
This is why.
Sure.
Council members, do you have any questions? If not, we will now go to the public hearing portion. Clerk Torado, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak in favor of Bill 08-24?
There is no one from online that is wishing to speak in favor of the bill.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
There is no one online wishing to speak in opposition of the bill.
At this point, the public hearing on Bill 08.
You can ask the audience,
Will we ask anyone from the public that's in opposition, or that's when we're giving them that opportunity? All right. Well, at this point, the public hearing, is there anyone here that would want to speak in favor or opposition? But that's how we've been doing it. When we ask that question, is either someone online or in the chamber. So, all right. At this point, the public hearing is now closed. Any council members would like to make any statements?
Thank you for your investment in the community and our city, and make a motion to send the bill forward with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Clerk Torado, please call the roll.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan. Aye. Councilmember White. Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Councilmember Bowden Simpson.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Aye.
Vice President Niskoski.
Aye.
President McBride.
Aye.
All nine.
All right. Bill 08-24 will be sent to full council with a favorable recommendation. Clerk Torado, will you please give Bill 09-24 a second reading?
0924, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, authorizing the City of South Bend, Indiana to fund its taxable economic development revenue note, Series 2024, Real America Project, and approving and authorizing other actions in respect thereto.
All right. Is there a committee report?
Yes. This bill was heard by Committee Investment and comes forward with a favorable recommendation.
The petitioner is present. I ask that you state your name and address and share with us key points regarding the bill that's before us.
Eric Lavich, Director of Growth and Opportunity, offices on the 14th floor of this building. This Bill 0924 would provide council's authorization to issue a forgivable loan for the Real America Diamond View and Stadium Flats project. This has been a project that we've worked many years on. I apologize to the council members who've gone through this many, many times. There are a few new council members who might not have the backstory behind the project, so I will try my best to hit the high points. Over the last few years, the area just east of the baseball stadium has seen significant city support. We're talking about the area that's highlighted in yellow. Last year, council approved a tax abatement for the Soma apartment building, which is currently in the process of being remodeled, and the Monroe is a low-income tax credit project that Devereaux Peters will be undertaking this year. So the Diamond View project is, will comprise of 3 buildings. One of them will be a low-income tax credit project building, affordable housing dedicated to households below 80% AMI. The project will also include 2 market rate buildings, so it's a mixed development, really exciting project. The lot is pretty much vacant at this point, and within a year or two, we'll have 3 buildings being built on there. As I mentioned, there's an affordable housing building. This is 60 units. This is basically going to be on the southeast corner of the property. Here's some renderings that the developer has provided us as we've gone through this project. The Stadium Flats portion will be 2 market rate buildings, basically on the west half of this block. So there'll be 1 building to the northwest and another building on the southwest. As I mentioned, the project's been, we've been working with the developer for quite some time. As we've gotten to this point, the Redevelopment Commission has supported this project by allocating $3.8 million toward the project. As I just click through some of the slides here, you'll see the breakdown for the affordable building. As I was mentioning, the Redevelopment Commission had dedicated $3.8 million for this project to be split between among the 3 buildings. The private investment commitment from Real America is over $21.5 million. However, the project itself will actually be north of $30 million. This is the commitment, the minimum amount that they've committed, and the numbers that they've provided, are much higher than that. Basically, the Redevelopment Commission approves the money to come out of TIF financing, and what we're putting before you is the prospect of providing this money to the developer via a forgivable loan. State law allows the city to be able to do this, as opposed to the city bidding out projects through, public works bidding process. The benefit of going through a forgivable loan is it provides the developer some flexibility in how they can use the money. And this is important because for these low-income tax credit projects, they have a tight time frame. They have to complete the project within 2 years. And oftentimes when we bid out public projects, there's delays through the bid process, and oftentimes it could delay a project. So we ask that you consider supporting this ordinance, which will authorize the TIF money to be provided via a forgivable loan. I'll just spare you the the details of how we've gotten here, but going back to July 21, the Common Council officially expressed its support for the project by providing a tax abatement. In June of last year, as the project evolved, we had to reconfirm the tax abatement for the affordable rental building and had to do a second abatement for the market rate. And the reason for doing the separate abatements was that the project did continue to evolve. So going back in 2021, I believe it was the plan originally, it was going to be 1 big building and a townhouse type of complex, but the project's evolved and the city's been supportive along the way. Just clicking through. The last 2 steps in this process to provide them this money through a forgivable loan is this ordinance. As this ordinance is approved, then the next step would be for the Redevelopment Commission to simply finalize the loan. The Redevelopment Commission would basically consider a resolution that would allow them to sign the loan documents. As of now, assuming everything goes well, Real America will break ground on the low-income tax credit project building next month. And depending on how certain things work out, they would break ground on the market rate building shortly thereafter. I think.
Is there any other? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think that's it. I can answer. I do know that Mike Surak from Real America is online. He can answer any questions that you have, but You know, thank you for council members' patience, as we've talked about this I've been here a year and a half, and I've talked about it a lot, so I can't imagine how much you guys have talked about it before I came, so.
Mike, if you would like to give us some statements, please give us your name and address for the record.
Yes, Mike Surak, Executive Vice President at Real America Companies, 8250 Dean Road, Indianapolis. Thank you everyone for taking the time this evening. I think Eric did a really good job summarizing the project, giving an overview of the mixed income, mixed use, multiple phases that we're working on there. Just a little bit of quick background on Real America. We've been in business for going on our 30th year now. We're primarily affordable housing developers. We completed about 40 tax credit developments throughout the state of Indiana, and we do a small amount of work in the market rate space, which we kind of describe as missing middle, trying to capture people that just make a little bit too much money for affordable housing, but can't necessarily afford the brand new kind of Class A luxury market rate buildings that a lot of developments look like these days. We've had a good relationship with the city of South Bend going back to, I think, 2014 or 2015 when we first did the former hotel, the LaSalle Hotel conversion to market rate apartments, which was completed in 2016. Like Eric mentioned, we've been working on this particular development and this site since early 2021. We were successfully awarded tax credits last year, which was a major step towards making this project come about. And then really just through conversations with the city, we really like to be a part of this growth in the immediate area that's obviously seen a lot of other investment, which is why we incorporated that market rate phase. And we think just developing nearly the whole square block there will really make a great positive impact to complement what's going on there at Four Winds Field with the South Bend Cubs and then the other projects that Eric mentioned just east of us along Main Street. Happy to answer any questions. We're very excited to kick the project off and look forward to being a part of this area of downtown South Bend. Thank you.
All right, council members, do you have any questions?
Yes, I'd like to just say that earlier today, when we were in committee, there was Mr. Murray Miller here, local contractors, the laborers. So I want to reiterate you getting with him.
Thank you, council member. Per the suggestions during committee meetings, I will be scheduling a meeting or a virtual meeting or a call with Mr. Miller and Real America to discuss the issues.
All right, at this point, we will go to the public portion and we're going to ask if there's anyone in the public or online that would like to, that is wishing to speak in favor of Bill 09-24.
I do not see anyone in the audience or online wishing to speak in favor of the bill.
All right, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition online or in person?
I do not see anyone in person in the audience or online that's wishing to speak against the bill.
At this point, the public hearing on Bill 09-24 is now closed. Council members, would you like to make any statements? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion.
I move that we send Bill 09-24 to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second. There's been a motion and a second. Clerk Toronto, please call the roll.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember White. Aye. Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Vice President Miskowski.
Aye.
President McBride. Aye. All nine.
All right. Bill 09-24 will be sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation. I will now entertain a motion to resolve from the committee of the whole.
So moved. Second.
All right, it's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any that oppose? The motion carries.
reading. A third reading and action is taken regarding the bills heard during the committee of the whole. Clerk Toronto, will you please give Bill 0724 a third reading?
0724, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving a petition of the Advisory Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 609 LaPorte Avenue, Councilmanic District Number 2 in the City of South Bend, Indiana.
Thank you. Council, is there a committee report?
Yes, it was heard in the committee of the whole, and it comes to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion regarding Bill 0724.
Move for passage.
Moved and seconded. Clerk Toronto, the roll, please.
Councilmember White. Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner. Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Aye.
Vice President Nisdowski.
Aye.
President McBride. All nine.
Thank you. Bill 0724 has been adopted. Clerk Toronto, will you please give Bill 0824 a third reading?
0824, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving a petition of the Advisory Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 826 South Bendix Drive, Councilmanic District Number 6 in the City of South Bend, Indiana.
Thank you. Council Lee, is there a committee report?
Yes. Bill 0824 was heard in the committee of the whole, and it comes to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
I will now entertain a motion.
Move for passage?
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk Toronto, the roll, please.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee. Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Aye.
Councilmember White. Councilmember Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Vice President Nisdowski. President McBride.
Aye.
All nine.
Bill 0824 has been adopted. Clerk Toronto, will you please give Bill 0924 a third reading?
0924, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, authorizing the City of South Bend, Indiana to fund its taxable economic development revenue note, Series 2024, Real America Project, and approving and authorizing other actions respect thereto.
Thank you. Councilor Lee, is there a committee report?
Yes. 09-24 was heard in the committee of the whole, and it comes to the full council with a favorable recommendation. That's
Thank you. I would like to entertain a motion regarding Bill 0924.
Move for passage into 0924.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk Toronto, the roll, please.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson.
Aye.
Councilmember White. Councilmember Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Vice President Nisdowski.
Aye.
President McBride.
Aye.
All nine.
Thank you. Bill 0924 has been adopted. Bills on first reading. Clerk Toronto, will you please give Bill 1024 a first reading?
1024, first reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending Section 2-7C of Chapter 2, Article 1 of the South Bend Municipal Code, duties of the city clerk as clerk of the council, to permit the city clerk to hire outside contractual services for the initial preparation of drafts of meeting minutes.
Thank you. I would like to entertain a motion to send Bill 1024 to the Rules Committee for public hearing and third reading on February 26th.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. The roll, please.
Councilmember Dr. Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolden Simpson. Councilmember White. Councilmember Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Gooden Rogers.
Aye.
Vice President Nisdowski.
Aye.
President McBride.
Aye.
All nine.
Thank you. Clerk Toronto, will you please give Bill 1124 first reading?
First reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving a petition of the Advisory Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 737 Bell Street.
Thank you. I would like to entertain a motion to send Bill 1124 to South Bend Planning Commission on March 4th, and back to the Zoning and Annexation Committee for public hearing and third reading on March 11th.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposition? The motion's carried. Clerk Torado, will you please give Bill 1224 first reading?
1224, first reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending ordinance number 10982-23, which fixes maximum salaries and wages of appointed officers and non-bargaining employees of the Office of the City Clerk of the City of South Bend for calendar year 2024 to establish one full-time position.
Thank you. I would like to entertain a motion to send Bill 1224 to Personnel and Finance for public hearing and third reading on February 26th. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion's carried. Council, is there any unfinished business at this time?
Yes. Madam
Dr.
President.
Davis?
On January the 18th, I sent Ms. Cynthia Simmons Taylor a letter regarding the certified minority and women business enterprises, and asked a series of questions regarding that, such as looking at some of the suggestions that we can utilize for the city regarding us increasing our spending as we look at all of the different projects the mayor outlined tonight, certified minority and women businesses, and not only the certified ones, but also non-certified minority and women business enterprises during this budgeted year of 2024. Hopefully in the coming days that we will get at least 3 suggestions. I wanted to also know, do we keep a list of the non-certified businesses, and what could we do to greatly enhance the non-certified minority and women businesses at this time? Because I believe, and I'm not certain, and then we can get clarification, in order to get certain contracts over a certain amount of money, you have to be certified. But then what is the threshold for a non-certified that the city can give to minority and to women businesses? I think this will really help generate our economy for our small businesses, to look at that. And I would like to hopefully hear back from Ms. Simmons Taylor. I was wondering, do you have any suggestions? Could we not only get it in some kind of a letter format, but is there any suggestion of how this could be presented to us, and so we can have some type of dialogue between the council and Ms. Simmons and her staff?
I will follow up with Ms. Simmons, but I can also defer to Rachel Thomas Morgan. I believe she's been working on it.
Yes, Councilman Davis, there's the Inclusive Procurement Board meets the first Tuesday of every month. And these are things that are reported on a monthly basis. I have answers to some of your questions. I'd be happy to have a discussion with you after the meeting. But it's open to the public, so anyone's welcome. 5:30, Tuesday, the first Tuesday of the month. I serve on that committee.
Is there any way that those answers, since, to just only give it to me is not, is there any way that we could have a summary of that to be presented to the council? Because it's something that a lot of people are questioning, and I promise that people would have. So while I appreciate that being in a different committee, I also would like to have that discussion here in this council and to have that to be addressed here too.
Okay, I will follow up.
I thank you.
Thank you. Any other unfinished business? I know Mr. Warner, I talked to some of the council to see if we can get a date, and I have asked Ms. White so graciously to follow up with council for some dates for us to go and visit the 11 fire stations to give our support to our firemen and women And we will be ordering them the same way, and sometimes we go and visit with the police department. We'll be going probably to two different stations the same day, so we can all hit them the same time and represent the council just to give our gratitude for their services. So information will be forthcoming of the different dates and the times, and I'll give it to the clerk's office so we can order food to have delivered to all 11 different locations. Is there any new business? First of all, I would like to thank Ms. Jenna Throw. Thank you so much for sitting in tonight as our parliamentarian. Thank you for stepping in today at the last minute. You did a great job. Thank you so much. Any other new business?
Council President, can we go back one?
Yes.
To, Dr. Davis, did you ever receive the list of the minority business?
I received the list of the minority business. I did not, receive.
Did you share it?
Yeah, I sent that. I forwarded it to you too.
Okay.
I sent it to everybody. Well, she sent it to everybody, and then the list that we are looking at too is, does the city keep a list of the non-certified ones too? And that's one I did not receive yet. And non-certified women businesses, because a lot of businesses that people do business with is not necessarily in the certified. They haven't gone through the whole state process for that, and so it's good for that. And then also the recommendations that she has for us to even increase that. I wanted to know what were her recommendations. That's what I have yet to receive yet too, because it's nice to see that and to let them know where we projected for that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, President McBride, I just want to remind the community that the South Bend Police Department holds monthly community crime stats meetings that are open to the public. Occurs every second Wednesday of each month at 6:30 on in the department on Sample Street in the auditorium. The next meeting is this Wednesday, February 14th. So bring your Valentine's date.
Thank you. At this time, I will open it to the privilege of the floor. You will have, please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. The maximum for this portion is 30 minutes. And any follow-up questions that you may have will be requested of the clerk's office or to city administration. Thank you. Your name and address, please.
Sue Kessom, 4022 Kennedy Drive. These are more comments. After the city takes on $60 million more of debt for fancy buildings and parking garages for Beacon, they dropped Medicaid on January 1st, which affects our poor, our foster kids, people who lost their jobs, and our seniors. Who cares if we have $60 million in fancy buildings and parking garages if they won't treat the people who need it most? They even dropped Medicaid for their family practice. They're dropping the quality of our life only to be rewarded with our tax dollars. So giving them $60 million, I'd like you to put pressure on them because big money is profiting off the misery of others once again.
So I appreciate your comment, but that's a state, that wasn't Beacon's choice. That's a state statute and function that's passed. That was investigated, so I don't want the misrepresentation because that came before us from people, and that is not a decision that Beacon made with Medicaid. That was a state legislation decision. So I just definitely don't
Okay.
want that misinformation going out.
Okay, thank you for the
Appreciate that.
update on that. The handout I gave you notes that the budget is, previous budget was not in legal compliance. The amounts spent in 2022 were not even available till after the budget was passed. For 2024, the parks just said $34 million, and that's like writing an amount on a napkin. The city needs to do better with the budget, and I hope that this budget season will be much more accurate. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I would also clarify, there was not a $60 million bond for Beacon. There were 2 bonds. There was a neighborhood bond that was also part of that. It was $24 million that was in neighborhood projects. So the Beacon bond was not $60 million total.
And for clarification, we did make parks, when they were not when we realized fully prepared. They did come back and had scheduled an alternative date for them to give their full budget with the presentation, and then they sent that out. So, well noted, thank you so much.
Is there anyone else? Please state your name and address for the record.
Joseph Jones, 1305 Woodfield Avenue, Apartment 102, South Bend, Indiana, 46615. That's in the 4th District. It's good to see everybody tonight. I want to read just briefly, real briefly, a couple notes I took while reading some things this weekend, some historical reading that I did related to the month that we're in. Slavery has existed on the African continent for centuries, even prior to the 15th century. There were 11 million slaves sold out of Africa, including sub-Saharan Africa, into the Islamic world, for example. The reason I mention this is not to offend anybody's sensibilities. It is not to minimize the effect that this transatlantic slave trade had on human history. It is to make a point that I think as we stand here today, any of us, all of us would say that we oppose slavery, whether it's council members or members of the public, in all forms, in all places, at all times. I think that's a fair statement. Whether it's debt slavery, enslavement of war captives, or enslavement of criminals, which are just a few examples. I mention that because obviously the situation with the voicemails with former Councilman Davis has been a major issue that's been discussed a lot publicly. And while it may be understandable that there wouldn't be a unified belief in the public that what happened there was unacceptable or should have maybe been addressed further, it should have been unanimous among the governmental body on which Mr. Davis served. There's been much public criticism of the mayor's office for their response or lack of response to that situation. What I would say is, I have not heard much publicly from members of the council who I've heard privately have made statements that they have received the same kinds of voicemails on a regular basis. To me, it's not fair to just let it's not any more fair than it is that Mr. Davis had to experience this, to let the brunt of a lack of response from the government body fall on the mayor's office when there are members of the council who have made written and private statements to members of the press that they've received the same voicemails. Aside from that, the only other comment that I have is, and I don't want to touch on something that was on the agenda, so I'll put it like this. It could be a business, a church, any kind of public or private entity. That entity comes into town and wants to purchase land to do whatever their business is, and there are members associated with that organization, not only in its management, but people who would be, let's say, working for that organization who are not considered safe to the community.
You have 30 seconds.
You will find yourself in a position where private entities with land for sale are not going to want to sell that land. I say that as a survivor of child sex abuse. People aren't going to want certain kinds of people in their community. And that's not about forgiveness or not. My faith has instructed me to forgive the people that victimized me when I was a child. If I had children, I would not want those people living around my children. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Don Foster, 132 Chapin Street. I think you guys notice whenever I come up, most of the people leave or have left already, so I don't know if that's a pattern I need to worry about. But a couple things, just real quick. One is Pastor Charles King, who's the new Community Police Review Board Director since May of 15th, 2023. As everybody knows, I have to remind you, it's February 2024. It's been 9 months. Just a question, can we seat the review board soon and get that done? It's just
That
been,
will be announced, the resolution will be done at the next meeting.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, thank you for that. And then something I wanted to bring up a little bit when I was here last year, and it was brought up today, so I thought maybe this might be a good time to talk about it when you talked about budget season that's coming up. And I know we've talked about a lot of different things, but I can remember even when you guys talked about giving yourself a raise, President McBride, you stated that you were possibly look at what the city employees were getting. And I just want to share to you from my perspective that it's really not about the city employees. You guys are elected officials, and that job that you guys have is a very important one. And as you guys heard today, you know, the mayor talking about a $417 million budget. I don't take that lightly. And I was just curious, I looked at what some of the other cities were doing. Fort Wayne, for example, they have a budget of $290 million. They have 266,000 people. We have 107,000 people. They're getting paid quite a bit more than what you guys are getting paid. And if you look at just Mishawaka, Elkhart, Fort Wayne combined, you're looking at around 370,000 people, 3.5 times. South Bend's budget is higher than those three altogether. You guys really should be paying yourself a lot more money. And just you do a comparison of one of those things that equivalently, you know, it can almost be double what you're making right now. So one of the things I'm saying, take it seriously what you guys are doing. I would say to you in all fairness, don't think about it as a comparison to what the other city employees are making. Don't think of it as 2% or 3%. It could be 10, 15%, whatever. Don't hold yourselves short of what you do. If you guys paid yourself 20% more money, I'm being honest with you, it ain't going to be any effect on the $417 million budget that you manage as of today. And that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Dr. Rado, do you see anyone in the virtual audience?
I do not see anyone in the virtual audience that is wishing to speak at this time.
Thank you. At this time, this meeting is adjourned. Good night.